When reading through some of these readings, there is a certain thing that came to my mind. I remember watching a TV show or a movie. I'm not really sure what it was. I can't remember. I can't recall it. But what I do remember clearly was there is this little image or depiction of these two brothers, young, maybe 3 or 5 years of age, and they were given a chocolate bar that they're supposed to share with one another. And the older brother was given the responsibility to split that bar into 2 pieces that were of equal size, just to be fair, right? And so that's what the older brother set out to do. And he broke the chocolate bar into 2 pieces, and then he lined the 2 pieces up together, but one was a little longer than the other. Now that wasn't fair. So what he did was he just took that longer piece and he chewed enough off of it, and then he lined it up and it's of equal length, and he shows it to the younger brother, who nods with approval. Okay, now that's fair. And oh yes, right? And they both ate the chocolate bar together, but our words from Micah, right? Oh, to do justice and to love mercy and to love kindness. And I think that most of us, if not all of us, we have something built into us, whether it's a thermometer or something, that where we measure what is just and what is not just. We have a way of doing that, and no one wants to have justice withheld from them. No one wants that. We all want what is fair, and we all want what is just, and that would pertain, I think, to nearly everything in life that relates to us in one way or another, whether it is major purchases or business deals, investment agreements, and certainly we would all agree with this too, the golden rule, right? Do to others as you would have others do to you. Or for you social media buffs, if you read the sign at any point in time over the last couple of weeks, tweet about others as you would have them tweet about you. Boy, there is some that could really learn something from that. Social media is such a great thing and such a crazy thing. But justice matters, doesn't it? Being fair, it's a must. And without justice, there wouldn't be any accountability for those who might interpret justice through maybe a different set of lenses, through darkly tinted gray lenses, perhaps. Without justice, I think that there is a whole lot of trouble that is always just around the corner. And I think without justice, there would be even more distrust in our world. I think there would be a whole lot more broken relationships. There would be a higher number of people who would be oppressed. And listen, our Western culture here is hardly perfect. It's hardly innocent. And my point isn't to evaluate how fair our justice system is or how we personally will interpret what is fair and what is not fair, but I simply state this: justice matters. And justice certainly matters to the Lord. And now I've previously mentioned too on other Sundays of how the adult class, they meet at the 9:45 on Sundays before the service, and they've been going through the daily bread, our daily bread readings, since September. And it's a lot of reading to do. And you might think, well, it's just a short little devotional. Yeah, it is. Short and sweet, there is that. But at the top right-hand corner, there is the Bible in 1 year, and it has an Old Testament reading and it has a New Testament reading. And if you read through that throughout the year, at the end of the year, you'll have read through the entire Bible. And so it is a lot of reading, and you have to keep up with it. If you're in that class, you got to keep up with it. Otherwise, you get into this speed reading, which never really works, does it? Those of you who have been, Lauren, you're a student, and we've had other people who have been through the University of Iraqi. Speed reading, it doesn't work. As much as people say, yeah, I can speed read, they cannot. And there's a lot of skimming that happens, and there's likely a lot that's going to be missed along the way. But one thing that I think is hard to miss through the Old Testament readings, especially through some of those books that are referred to as the prophets, such as Jeremiah and Isaiah, and even from our own reading today, Micah, what is really hard to miss is what they appear to have in common with one another. And that is this expression, or an expression of a deep concern for justice to be exacted out and shown between all people of the world. Now, prophet after prophet, it would appear, or it would seem, railed against the injustice and the absence of mercy within their own culture and within their own time, where there was suppression and oppression and the abuse of people. The prophets, they had something to say about that, always. They were God's spokespeople or spokesmen, and they pled for hearts to turn from self-advancement, really, and to see all people as being the same, as equals. An equality in any age. It's not something to be distorted or blurred by privilege or wealth. Rather, whatever means someone does have or did have was to be seen as an opportunity to show mercy and to ensure that justice would find its way to the people who desperately did need it. The Lord has a heart for justice and mercy, and he has eyes on those who are without these, and the Lord has eyes on those who suffer and on those who hurt, and Jesus spent so much of his time with those who found themselves in situations that were stressful and just plain hard. He healed people of disease and of illness, so that they could resume life again and sustain themselves and their families, and to be changed too, for sure, where they would live graciously because of the mercy that they had been given. And then look to God, and in gratitude, then share their heart with another who is needy as they were. Love one another. Simple enough statement, isn't it? It's been implored of by God since the dawn of time. And no one could ever disagree that to love one another within the context of the golden rule, it is absolutely vital for the common good and even the survival of us all. And yet it has to be stated over and over and over again. Love one another, care for one another, look after one another. And you see, the thing is that the poor are ever among us. And when I say poor, I mean poor in every sense of the word. Poor not just simply defined by empty pockets, but by whatever it is that breaks the hearts and breaks the spirit of people. And it was broken-hearted people who were broken in spirit whom you would find Jesus constantly with, speaking into their lives, sitting across from them and looking into their eyes with unwavering attention and sharing meals with them, conversation, compassion, accepting them, forgiving them, loving them. And this is what made the Beatitudes so wonderful. A powerful message of encouragement given by Jesus, given to the poor, given from Jesus, given to the poor, the hungry, the crying, the hated, and the ostracized. And to all these, Jesus promises blessing. And blessing is sometimes maybe, I don't know, is it perceived as a churchy word, but it is such a powerful word, especially in how Jesus uses the word blessing. Reading in Matthew, or in Luke again, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you shall be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you and when they exclude you and revile you and spurn your name as evil on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for behold, your reward is great in heaven." So is there anything that is making you weary today, or that you feel weary of today? If there is, then you know this, that you are among the blessed that Jesus is speaking to here in this passage called the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes are for you. But then Jesus carries on. Woe to anyone who is not among the blessed. And a few startling lines are spoken which are the direct opposite of his promised blessings, and they're the woes. Woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you shall be hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you shall mourn and weep. Woe to you when all people speak well of you, for so their fathers did to the false prophets. Now listen, these woes are not about drawing lines of who is in and who is out in the kingdom. Rather, the woes are a call for all those who will listen to reassess their lives. And if we are not among those who are hungry, and if we do have means to sustain ourselves, if our experience is not as those who are among Jesus' audience of that day in Luke, who are poor and broken, that's okay. But woe to those who are apathetic and ungrateful for the blessings that are in their lives which go unnoticed. Woe to those who are without gratitude. And woe to those who are concerned, or who are unconcerned, I should say, for those who do struggle and suffer along in life. The woes are a call. They are a call to reassess life in light of God's mercy, in light of his grace. And it may seem as though Jesus' statements of woe are revealing something, like maybe perhaps the things that are assumed or perceived to be as advantages, maybe they're not. Like, what if money or food abundance and comfort and personal security, whether it's shelter or financial security or whatever, what if those things could actually be harmful to us? In that the blessings in our lives, they're just a given, they're deserved. It's what we're entitled to. Recognize the blessings. And let the love of God reign in our lives and find its way deep into all of our hearts, because when it does, there is this weight that is lifted. And as we sung, the things of this earth, those things that plague us, those things that roll through our minds sometimes, that live between our ears rent-free at times, they grow strangely dim in light of His glory and grace. And something begins to happen within. There's this stirring that is within, that something begins to take shape or form, and it's this generosity or a feeling of compassion, which becomes something that we have to give away when we recognize those blessings. We have to share it, because mercy we have received, and so mercy is then something that we must give away. And woe if we miss the opportunities to do that. I think Jesus laid a foundation for mercy, and it was seen through, I think you really see it through His hospitality in an array of ways. Sharing conversation with one another, sharing meals with one another, sitting across from someone, caring for people, listening to people. And what opportunities are out there for you? And what difference might it make, not only in someone else's life, but what difference might it actually make in your life too, if you were to give that grace away, give that mercy away, to share of yourself in that way, to share the love of Christ. Because if it's true, and what Tim had read earlier, if we do believe that we're all created for workmanship that will pour out into the world unto the people who are around us, if we believe that, what difference might it make in our lives then? I recently read a story, a short story. I like short stories. And it was both kind of amusing and kind of sentimental all at the same time. And it was just a few days before Christmas, when a postal worker, he had come across an unstamped, handwritten, messy envelope that was addressed to God. And he was curious, because that's all that was on this envelope. So he opens it up. We kind of go, oh, postal workers opening up mail. Well, that's what he did. He opened it up, and he discovered that the letter was from an elderly lady who was in great distress because her savings, all of her savings, $200, had been stolen. And as a result, she wouldn't have any food for Christmas. And so this postal worker, his heart goes out for this lady, and so he goes to his fellow co-workers, and they took up a collection, as their hearts are stirred to do so too. And they dug deep, and they came up with $180. And they put the money into a plain envelope with no note or anything, and they sent it off by courier that day so that it would arrive at her door on that day. Well, a week later, that same postal worker noticed another unstamped letter that had been addressed to God, and it had the same handwriting on it, and in it he found a brief note. And it said, "Dear God, thank you for the $180 that you sent to me for Christmas, which would have been so bleak if I had not received that. P.S. It was $20 short, but that was probably because of those thieving postal workers." Amusing and sentimental at the same time, right? Now I wonder if that postal worker was amused, or was it possible that maybe he had been put off a little bit, after his effort to do something beyond himself, and not only himself, he incorporated, or he involved his fellow peers who were also giving from their heart. I wonder if they were put off by a note that did little to express the gratitude, but more belittlement of them as government postal workers. And I wonder, could their decision or their experience to give from their heart have been minimized by this elderly lady's criticism? Maybe. Or maybe knowing that they were following their heart to bless another, maybe that was enough. We are called to love one another. And how we may do that, it can be wide and it can vary, but it's worth noting this too, that if we're looking for affirmation or a pat on the back, don't hold your breath, because it might not always come. But that's not really the point either, is it? The point is that we are all part of the kingdom of God. We're all part of the family of God. And we share in a mandate that is so simple, and yet it's hardly trivial. And often someone is right in the middle of it. They're participating in it, or they're doing it. They're fulfilling this mandate without even being aware of it. Like how? Well, it could be husbands loving wives, wives loving husbands, fathers and mothers loving their sons and sons and daughters loving their moms and dads, and friends loving one another. This is all part of the mandate here. And there are other moments too that require something of the people of God as well. And it's to care for their community, church community, our neighborhoods, and the people within it. And next, or a few weeks from now, we're starting Angels Anonymous, and that's quite practical, isn't it? And I also believe that there are countless opportunities that are placed before us by God. And maybe it's someone who's right next to you. Maybe it's a peer. Maybe it's a coworker. And where we are given a chance to serve and share the love of Jesus, where Jesus is desperately needed. Whom will God lead you to? Whom has He already maybe placed in your heart and your mind? What has He placed in your heart to do? Because blessed you are when you follow that stirring within your heart, and woe if you don't. Not woe because you're really going to get it if you don't, but woe because you missed out on an opportunity to be a blessing. Missed out on the opportunity to be, or missed out on the blessing to be a blessing, is another way to put it. And so what a day we have before us right here and right now to prayerfully consider from the Lord, or what you need from the Lord today. Lord, what do I need? And then to prayerfully consider how blessed of a people we really are, because we are. And prayerfully consider how the love of God can move from you and I to another. And what a day to start on a Communion Sunday, where once again we come to the table, where we come and we join everyone who has been redeemed and everyone who has been set free, where we come face to face once again with the awesome love of Jesus. The love of Jesus that He has freely given to us and blessed us with. So we get to come to the table yet again and be reminded of that. In place of a communion song, we have special music. I'm going to ask if Darlene and Carol would play this song.